And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 28 of the Sling'N podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And joining us tonight is a very well-respected USPSA Grandmaster and owner of Tim Herron Shooting, Tim Herron himself. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Tim, obviously, I invite you guys to go check out all of his social media and website links that are posted in the description of this broadcast. Also, spoiler alert, Tim will be hosted by Kent up at his range in Pennsylvania, God willing. I guess Corona willing is more accurate.
Listen, I don't give a shit about God or Corona. Tim's coming, and we're running class.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. Tim had that look on his face like, please don't tell me bad news, bro.
Yeah.
Fuck that shit.
No, it's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great time. So, Tim, again, welcome to the show. One of the things that we like to start every show off with is giving our guests an opportunity to explain to the people out there exactly who the hell they are. So when you're not slinging lead, when you're not out on the range posting blazing times on the various drills you're running, who are you and what makes Tim Herron?
Well, I'm Tim Herron. I am the owner and sole proprietor of Tim Herron Shooting, which is a traveling training company, and I travel all over the country offering firearms training. I consider just performance shooting training. So it's not necessarily dedicated or revolving around just USPSA or IDPA. At the same time, it doesn't just cater to defensive or tactical minded shooters. So it is a broad spectrum of anything handgun or PCC in the realm of just making you a more high performance or better shooter, period. I am this is my 10th year. Yeah, I guess so. This is my 10th year as a competitor within USPSA and as a firearms owner and shooter overall. I started shooting USPSA probably about 4 or 5 months after I picked up my first pistol ever in 2010, and kind of quickly rose up the ranks from kind of a hobbyist to a passionate, competitor to this is now my full-time occupation. So I've been an automotive technician for 20 plus years, and I finally have said goodbye to my full-time profession to pursue teaching full-time. And this is year number 2. 2020 is my second year as a full-fledged firearms instructor that does this full-time.
Man, that is awesome. That anytime I get to hear about somebody getting in the opportunity to actually pursue their dreams and, live the quote unquote American dream, that just warms the subcockles of my heart, man. I appreciate it. And God love you for it. So real quick, I've been kind of going through your bio on your website, and it looks like that you started shooting, as per your own quote, in 2010, and you achieved the rank of Grandmaster in 2014.
In 2014. So it took me about 4 years.
What the fuck?
What are we doing wrong,
Yeah, what the hell?
Oh my God. I mean, it's a lot of people are like, God, 4 years, it took you that long? Because, I know a few people, including, previous students I've had that are like, they picked up shooting in like 2016, and by 2017 or 2018, they made GM, so they're like, what took you so long? I'm like, it's called a lot of hard work and determination. I am not the guy that was blessed with this, like 6 months after I picked up a gun for the first time, I made Grandmaster. I'm, if you're looking for the instructor extraordinaire or the competitor extraordinaire who did that, Tim Herron is not your guy. I mean, and I believe it allows me the opportunity to be able to relate much better with a much broader, not only just student-based, but shooter-based period or experience-based. It's not one of these things where I just picked up a gun for the first time and started, and shot exceptionally well and then just started shooting because, well, I think I'm pretty good at this. It was more like, like I have been at any and every step along the way, or any and every plateau that every shooter that I've had the opportunity, to experience or to, or to teach or to share things with, I've been in their shoes when they say, man, I'm plateaued. I don't know how to get any better than this. We'll talk, about some things. And I'm like, man, I remember those days. Let me tell you how it was that I got past those things. So I think it's helped me overall to have a much broader, a broader spectrum of being able to relate more to students as well, knowing that, I've never been that guy to be like, you're plateaued and, you've made B and you just don't know how to get past that, huh? Or, you can't seem to get past a 2.5 second build drill. Yeah, I've never had that problem. I can tell you exactly what's causing those problems, why, the what's, the whys, and the hows, and then how to, and solutions for how to fix them.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, you show me somebody that makes Grandmaster inside a year, and I'm going to start really questioning the standards for these ranking structures with USPSA.
Well, so, and some I've known about 4 to 5 people to do it within a year, if not within 18 months. But the issue is they are so like overly dedicated, right, with just making a classification that I've known 4 of those 5 that have burned out within 6 months after making Grandmaster. It was like that was their ultimate goal, and once they achieved it, they didn't know what to do with their time after that. So they were like, oh, well, this is kind of boring to me. And it's like, well, no, you've barely chipped like made a little dent in your overall journey as a shooter by just making Grandmaster, but so for some people achieving the status of Grandmaster, like that was their journey. That was their goal. They set their mind to that one thing, and come hell or high water, that's what they wanted to achieve. As soon as they achieved it, it's almost like they didn't understand or know how to set another goal, or to maybe redirect a little bit of that passion to keep them hungry, and on that journey for knowledge to, like martial arts. I honestly, I compare, shooting the exact same way as I would somebody that, that's in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Taekwondo or karate or whatever. There's a lot of guys that are like, man, I just want to get out of white belt. Man, I would just love to get past, being a blue belt, in BJJ. And then it's like, as soon as they achieve like purple belt, they're like, okay, cool. I'm a well-respected member of the BJJ community. And then they stop, and I'm sure we all know guys that have been in that exact same scenario, and then maybe given a couple, 2 or 3 years, they come back to it. And shooting is no different. They'll make A or M class or GM. And then it's like, cool. Now I don't know what to do with my time. Like, I don't know what direction to go next,
Man, I wish I had those problems. But real quick, before we turn it over to Ken, I know he's got some fantastic questions lined up for you. The whole instructor to instructor thing.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious because this is kind of a hot topic in the training industry. So you mentioned that you were an automotive technician for 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Any law enforcement or military black ops ninja ranger school under your belt?
No, believe it or not. So
no, that's fine.
Yeah, no law enforcement, no military. Unfortunately, my life choices just did not direct me down that path. It's something I've always regretted, especially when I was a younger guy and could have, would have, should have pursued. Even just doing a 4-year term within the military. And I got married super early when I was really, really young, graduated college and, started a family at like the tender age of 20. And so, for me, it just, I had a different career path in mind. So, but yeah, I totally respect law enforcement, military. And in fact, I love to work even more so with LE and military guys, even in my training. So
no, and that's fantastic. And please, by all means, don't think it of any form of negativity or anything.
No, not at all.
To be diminutive. But I have military background. Kent does not. And one of the things that we try to continuously embody and explain and demonstrate to our audience is that don't get hung up on these, well, for the lack of a better term, faux credentials, right? just because you were military or law enforcement doesn't make you a great shooter any more than standing in a garage holding a wrench makes you a mechanic.
You're absolutely right.
Right. So outstanding. Always glad to hear it. And I'll tell you what, man, like I said, and I was telling Kent this before we went live, I was watching some of the drills and times you were posting on YouTube, and dude, you blaze it down. It is impressive, but I'm going to shut up for a little bit. Kent, I know you are just bubbling with excitement. So take it away.
So what I'm always interested in is, and I get to see this in person very soon, right? But I'm always interested in seeing how you approach your POI and what we're going to get into in the class kind of thing. And I don't want to like F you people, take the class, right? Like this dude's not going to stand here and give you a free lunch for an hour. But that said, knowing, like you and I have talked, knowing some of the other stuff that I've experienced, and we've had Spencer on here, we've had Scott on here, we've had a bunch of other really high speed, low drag, or high drag, low speed, depending on your viewpoint, kind of cats on here. What do you think separates you from the training community? What it is about what you offer that
I think more than anything, and it's something I'm really passionate about because I think it is missing a lot within from the instructor realm, and that is an excess of one-on-one instruction with each individual student, and building my curriculum in such a way as to, there are a lot of instructors that, kind of, especially maybe from the competitive realm, they kind of set these terms, really for students, like must be a C class or above shooter, or must be a B class and above shooter in order to even like to step foot in the class. You've got to be able to do X amount of things before we broaden the instruction or accept you into the class, because we don't want to drag any of the other student base behind. And that is absolutely positively not the case with my classes or with how the instruction or with how I've built the curriculum. The curriculum that I've built, and I've spent a lot of years kind of teaching just, from the local level back when when I lived in Kansas City. And then even as I moved into to Albuquerque, New Mexico, one of the things that I do as a lot is I'm constantly, I don't want to say basically changing the curriculum, but I'm constantly evolving the curriculum by utilizing, friends and family, within the shooting community, whether they be local guys that I offer some free instruction to, or, every time we go to a match, I shoot with a group or squad of friends too, that I'm always kind of bouncing ideas off of, or, like getting their input on, the different ways, how I'm conveying information to them so that I can make my classes overall better and better and better every single time that I step foot on a range to teach. But yeah, I mean, the way that I've got the curriculum built is to broaden that to where, I mean, I don't care if you're a 5-month, brand new, just picked up my gun, 2 or 3 months ago, and I've got a holster and I've got a belt and I've got some mags and I want to learn, then you know what, you're ready. So, and it doesn't mean that the class itself then is slowed down just for that shooter who may be working on something that, let's say, Kent and TJ obviously are, let's say at the higher end of the spectrum, but what I'm saying about that is you guys have some experience, right? You guys have been shooting for quite a while. So if I slowed the entire class down to just talk about how to get the gun out of the holster, a little more efficient for you guys, when let's say you guys are already knocking on the door to like a 1-second draw to presentation, or, like that's not something I need to broaden the spectrum on with you. However, at the same time, right, I can focus a lot of that energy to that shooter to make them safer and more efficient in that realm for them, right? So I can personalize that instruction over 2 days to really fit the needs of each individual. 12, being a maximum of 14 students on a line, all the way down to a minimum of 8 students on the line, and being able to maximize their value to each individual student and what I see that person needs to work on, So like Kent, and let's say you're really, really good at, say, explosive movement, and I'm just saying these things. So you're really good at explosive movement, but you have a hard time on maybe over refining the sights and too much follow through with the pistol. Where let's say TJ is really, really good at transitions, right? And he's got a really smoking fast draw and blazing reloads, but he's leaving a little bit left on the table there as far as his movement or as far as his overall efficiency, as far as like dynamically moving throughout a stage. Well, I can, again, tailor the instruction to really fit the needs of both of you guys. So you guys both get, obviously, every single dollar spent in the class, you get your money's worth on the class, but it's not like, well, it's not like I have one student saying, well, that's all good and great, but it seemed like the whole class was just revolving around, Tim working with Kent, or Kent saying, well, I really feel like, Jamie down on the end, the new shooter, she got all of his attention and I didn't get much,
Yep.
And I really feel like I'm offering something that a lot of other instructors, I don't want to say that they overlook, but I think sometimes for the sake of maybe their overall efficiency of them and how they teach, that maybe that's why they kind of limit the spectrum of student body they have to, I want to work on these things, and these are the only things I want to work on in a class. This is all I'm going to teach. And I don't want to address more basic techniques, nor do I want to address super advanced techniques. This is my little spectrum. This is my bread and butter, and this is what I want to work on. And I don't have that. Like I said, I've had people that are 6 months new to shooting, standing on the exact same fire line as a student in a previous class last year that was a top 16 finisher at US Open Nationals. So, and both of them felt like they got an immense amount of knowledge out of the class. And neither of them felt like the other slowed the class down or sped the class up too fast for the other.
It's interesting what the Socratic method can do for, running a gun class. Everybody gets to experience each other's failings and flaws. And
absolutely.
The light bulbs come on and you see somebody. I love seeing somebody who I idolize as a shooter light up and go, oh shit, I didn't think of that before.
Yeah.
I look over at that dude and I go, wait. If he's salivating, I should be paying attention, right?
And absolutely. And as a teacher, like as an educator, I don't know. I think instructor kind of like, it kind of limits your base, like I want to be considered an educator, a teacher, a personal coach to so many people, not just a drill instructor, like, okay, guys, this is my 16 drills that we're going to work over the next 16 hours together, and line up on the line. You're going to do it this way. And that's all you're going to do, man. That's not teaching.
Why? Because it says that in the manual.
Right. Because I said so, because my way is the only way. And that's all there is to it. And that's nothing is further from the truth.
Dare we say your goal is to be an influencer?
Yeah. Right.
But I post really, really cool pictures on the gram. I'm an influencer sometimes. Kind of like I'm a great singer in the shower for an audience of one.
Okay, so we've got some cool questions in the chat. One from a fellow fledgling instructor like myself. We're all somewhere on the path, right? Genevieve asks, Tim, what do you think the most important thing for a new instructor to learn is?
The most important thing for a new instructor to learn?
Yes.
Oh God, everything.
Right.
If you don't think that if you think your job as an instructor is done when you enter the realm of teaching, it's just, to basically think like, okay, I'm an instructor now, I know everything, and you shut off the faucet or the fire hose of wanting to learn, you're doing it wrong. I think probably overall one of the best things that you can do as a newfound or even as a very mature and experienced teacher is obviously to continue the learning process yourself. Take other classes from other instructors. Always strive to learn and to test everything. I don't care if somebody, even with a new shooter or a new student in a class, they might say, well, I was taught that by so-and-so, and they said, and I would never say, well, that so-and-so told you something that's completely wrong, but a lot of times it's one of those like, that's an interesting way to think about it. You know what? I will take notes on that myself so that I can go back home after class and put it to the test. And honestly, I've learned a lot that, hey, you know what? Somebody else was told something that maybe made a little bit more sense for them, that was conveyed in such a way that made them understand maybe a little bit better than how I was conveying that information. Maybe I need to jot that down. Maybe I need to test that. Maybe I need to, to kind of run that through the filter, so to speak, and see what I've got left and see if it's something that I can use. I mean, nobody as a teacher has all the answers, right? And nobody as a teacher is teaching something, especially within this industry, is teaching something that is new and improved or reinvented, right? I mean, this is the same stuff. I mean, the information that you're sharing with students is the same stuff that was shared to you when you were a student. Same as here, same as me. I mean, the stuff that I latch onto, the things that I hold most dear in my heart of hearts, as far as what I want to share and convey to other students, are things that I've learned from people like Ernest Langdon, Mike Seeklander, Rob Latham, Todd Jarrett. I mean, these are guys that were not only just my idols, as well as my teachers and instructors and people that have molded me into the teacher and instructor that I am, and that's the information that I want to be able to share to my student base.
Genevieve, by the way, for your benefit, Mike Seeklander has a book out on firearms instructing.
The Art of Instruction.
Thank
you.
Is
an absolute 100%. Yep. It's on my absolute top list of must reads for anybody that's new, or even, like I said, even been teaching for a long time. It's a great source of information.
So I'd like to capitalize on that question just a little bit, and staying on the path of, the new shooter, things to learn. What are some things to look out for? What are some challenges that you encountered as you were starting, not necessarily just your own company, but starting to instruct on a more formal level?
The main thing is if it's something that you're willing to like die on the hill for, so to speak, it's something that you're so influenced by that is what you're taking to your grave. Make sure not only do you know how to defend it, but you also know how to demonstrate it and do it every single time. I think a lot of people, would like I said, they want to stand on the hill for something that they really, really like, like, oh man, I think that gripping a gun this way is the only way because it's the only way that's worked for me. Okay, cool. If that's the only way that's worked for you, and that's the only way that you're going to teach it to somebody, right, that might come through your doors as a, via your company or whatever, and come through your doors as a student, be ready to defend it at all costs against anything. There is not one way to do this, right? I shoot competitively with thousands of competitive shooters. I consider myself kind of one of those guys that, I'm very fortunate that I get to shoot on the super squad, with some of the USPSA's most elite shooters, guys like, again, Rob Latham, Nils Jonasson, Mike Seeklander, just kind of dropping some names out there. And the funny thing is no two people will shoot a stage or even just remotely shoot a handgun the same way. They don't. Yep. So if there's so many broad spectrums or differences in how to shoot a handgun that all converge to the same level of performance, then there's a whole lot of shit I don't know.
Fair.
It's awesome because everybody in this same vein and same circle, right? Like, Scott turned me on to you and all these different guys. Anybody in this same mindset and same vein, the common theme I'm always finding is, man, nobody thinks they know everything. Anybody worth a shit does not think they know everything.
You're absolutely right.
If you're taking money out of your pocket and giving it to some guy or girl that's giving you the way, like I'm Yoda and I'm just going to, if you just listen to me, I'm going to give you the force. That's fucking bullshit.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
That's right.
And it's been really cool to get all different types of viewpoints. And that's all I'm trying to do is push my, like you said, right? If you're an instructor and you're not out there taking classes, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but
well, I mean, and I don't want to say this to sound like I'm beyond classes. Unfortunately, my class schedule is so full this year that, and actually was so full as my first year as a full-time instructor that I just didn't have enough weekends in the year to be able to take instruction with other, with other like-minded or completely different-minded individuals. Some of my best friends though within this industry though, you brought up Scott Jedlinski. I've known Scott from back in the very first like primary and secondary days. Like over with Facebook with guys like Matt Landfair and Chuck Pressburg. Chuck Pressburg's another friend, is very near and dear to me. Bill Blowers, Steve Fisher. I mean, these are guys that I'm literally within just about any given time frame of the day. This phone will ring with one of those guys, and we're talking, and whether it's just talking to shoot the proverbial shit with each other, or a lot of times it's like, hey man, so I had this student in class today that brought up a really cool point, and you know what? I didn't know how to answer that. And it's cool to be, like I said, man, they're not only some of my absolute closest friends and family, but they're also great sources of, or resources, to be able to like, hey man, the dudes that have been doing this a hell of a lot longer than I have probably have some answers to help me out when I get hung up on things. And I think the worst thing you can do to a student is lie to them and tell them you either have all the answers or to try to baffle them with bullshit because you don't have the answer, but you're trying to sound smarter than you are. And there's been plenty of times I've been questioned by a student where I honest to God don't have the answer. And the very first thing I'm going to tell them is, you know what? I don't have the answer for that, but let me get back to you on that, or let's figure this shit out together. And there's been times I've stopped the class to where we have figured something out one-on-one with the student that asked the question. Let's test it. Let's test it right here, right now.
And I think you brought up a very interesting point, that the fact that you have maintained so many friendly relationships with all these other professional instructors. Kent and I both have had the privilege of training with Jedi, and just there seems to be, just from my limited interaction with a lot of these guys, but a lot of them we've had on the show, and there seems to be like this, pardon the phrasing, but an inner circle, if you will.
Oh, absolutely.
Of very like-minded instructors, and the fact that all you guys and gals are kind of forming like this central core of excellence, if you will.
And I think it's great. It's something. I think it's something that. God, this sounds so demeaning, but I don't mean it this way to any older instructor that's been around the block about 40 times would know. But like the old guard, right? Like some of the older instructors that have been doing this for 30, 40 years. I'm talking guys like Clint Smith and guys like Dave Spalding and Robert Butler comes to mind out of Colorado Springs. I mean, these are guys that have been doing this shit for fucking 25, 35, 45 years or more, and they've all had a wonderful inner circle for a number of years. And, and I think some of those guys, I don't want to say they're set in their ways, but, sometimes just like, I'm sure just like we're going to do probably 15, 20 years from now, you see these newer, younger, hungry instructors come in and we're like, who the hell does that guy think he is, kind of stepping on our turf, so to speak. And I think there was a lot of that, especially mid 80s to early 90s. Mm-hmm. And even into the late 90s, where there was a real big division or polarity between dudes that have been there, done that, and dudes that just haven't even earned the fucking t-shirt yet. Like how dare they call themselves an instructor? And I think a lot of it is in our mindsets as younger, newer instructors wanting to pick the brains of those older instructors. So not only being able to meld all of the information that we've gleaned from these wonderful and great, like super knowledgeable dudes. Pat Rogers, for forever and ever, that's been one of the instructors extraordinaire, until, unfortunately his passing a few years ago. Dude, everybody wanted to, everybody wanted to be beaten on the range by Pat, by Uncle Pat. Everybody wanted to learn as much as they could from guys like that. And it was great to see a lot of that old guard share a lot of their knowledge with a lot of the newer, younger shooters who are now, of course, old guard. And I say old guard, I'm still that younger, newer, hungry shooter that I'm just very fortunate, even though I don't have a past in, with military or law enforcement or any sort of, special operations or anything, that I've been able somehow to be very honored to be kind of to be accepted into that inner circle. Jedi is kind of another one. You know, we've been able to be kind of accepted in the inner circle to learn so much, and not only just be able to learn so much, but to be able to share and become friends with. And like I said, I mean, these aren't just my friends. I mean, these are guys that I would, at the drop of a hat, get in my car or jump on a plane tomorrow to do whatever I could for. You know, and what the great thing about it is that base continues to grow and expand every single day. You know, it's not like, oh, well, these 5 dudes or these 6 dudes are just my inner circle and that's it. I mean, that inner circle is growing exponentially every day with every student that I teach. You know, they get full access to me, you know, and as well as my inner circle of mentors and friends, just from taking a class and kind of, again, not being accepted into the inner circle, but being pulled into that. Like, man, come to here. You know, this is where you're going to keep educating yourself and keep learning.
One of the things I have to say about being a smaller regional tier trainer or whatever you want to call it, somebody certainly newer and whatever, the I word still scares me a little bit. Like, I still get a little sense of imposter syndrome sometimes. Like, I don't want to, you know, I'm always humble, right? Like, you gotta be. Sure. But one thing I got to say about 99.9% of the dudes that I've either hosted or traveled to train with or whatever I've interacted with, most of the dudes and girls in this industry have been so willing to help. I've not experienced any of that. Like, who's this dickhead? Get him off my turf, or get him. Dude. Like, yeah, so many people have been so willing to just do whatever they could.
And the funny thing is, those people weed themselves out faster than anybody needs to call them from the herd, so to speak. You know, right. They've done a fine job showing their ass enough to kind of call right. themselves, you know?
Right.
But and it's the same thing. I mean, it's fantastic to know, like, to know each other's lanes and to know who specializes in what, or, you know, who gleans better knowledge. Like, dude, you want to talk about, like, dudes that know a bunch of shit about, like, being able to shoot with night vision. I ain't your man. But I'll tell you what, you know, Chuck Pressburg, he's your dude. Steve Fisher, that's a dude you need to go see. You know, RDS, I know quite a bit about RDS, but you want to know everything there is to know about RDS, or really how to employ an RDS equipped pistol, you know, into your livelihood, not just into, you know, some USPSA or some practical shooting training. Bro, go see Jedi. Like, that's my dude, you know. And that's how I think that's how it should be. You know, I mean, this earth is large enough for an expanse of knowledge to exist and to share that knowledge with such a broad audience that, you know, you're not doing yourselves any favors by thinking that you own all the super secrets to this stuff, and people have to come see you, or they ain't getting the true stuff. That's bullshit.
I would even submit that even with all the instructors, you know, that we have currently, there still is sadly not enough to go around to get everybody the training that they should be getting.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely.
But with that being said, let's talk a little bit about some of the services you offer. So to curate another question from Genevieve in the chat, are you doing any type of online training during the COVID-19 pandemic?
I'm doing online training regardless of the COVID-19 thing. I have had 2 classes as far as traveling classes, you know, like in-person classes that I've had to reschedule now because of all of this, you know, this stuff that's going on. But I do offer my online training services as well. And we can do anything from fixing dry fire issues, you know, finding solutions to, you know, to things that might plague you in your dry fire, to being able to look at live fire practice video and being able to analyze and find solutions for, or fixes for even your live fire practice, to, if you're an avid competitor and just like, man, I just feel like I'm losing a lot of time on the range, you know, when I'm going to practice or when I'm shooting matches, you know, send me some videos. I can analyze that stuff and create an entire notebook so that we can sit down together, generally through Skype. I've done also through like Instagram FaceTime or whatever, or even through like iPhone FaceTime, to sit down face to face and work on making you a better shooter.
So you've perfected the platform before the need arose. so to speak.
So to speak, it's something I've always been interested in offering and something I've always offered, like even through my website. I even do a, like 3-month, either we can do like session by session, which, and it's actually very inexpensive. I'm at like $50 for an hour of time, just face to face on the, through Skype. Or we could do like a training, like a training schedule and do like a 3-month session or a 6-month session or a 6-month package where basically we meet about once a month, like over a 3-month time, we'd meet 3 times. But at the same time, we work together to kind of generate or build like a similar to like a workout program, for your shooting. Like, hey man, these are the things that are plugging you right now. I've got answers for that. Like, this is what you should be working on at the range. This is what you should be working on in your dry fire. Get these two to match each other. Send me some homework video. Show me what you've been doing in practice and what you're doing in live fire and dry fire. And keep reporting back to me. And then like every month we'll meet again and we'll either, kind of round the edges on the training, or we'll kind of redirect the training as needed to continually be hitting weak points in your shooting to keep you progressing.
So you've used the term, and I like, everybody's got a new term for the same thing. You call it a plug. I call it every fucking day, right? There's always something plugging me. So what are the most common things that you see people screwing up or people getting held up or hung up on?
Mostly they undergrip the pistol.
Fair.
They over refine initial sight pictures. And then they very rarely, if ever, refine second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth sight pictures.
I have a private student who I am always saying second sight picture. And he is watching right now. And you just made me smile. Did you hear that? Second sight picture. Yeah.
Second sight pictures are needed if there is a second shot needed on a target.
Absolutely.
So
they undergrip the pistol.
Undergrip the pistol. That's probably the biggest issue that plagues so many shooters.
Right. So you gotta be Bob Vogel, you gotta be Bill Blowers, you gotta bend the right side of the frame into the left side of the frame, and make the mag release buttons touch each other on the
not at all. The crushing the shit out of the gun is not necessary. However, gripping the piss out of the gun in an effort to hold the sight still while you operate the trigger is what is necessary.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I tried to overcome with additional strength for a long time. And Jedi kind of unfucked.
It doesn't work too well, does it?
Well, as it turns out, no.
Right.
But or if it does, it doesn't work all day or all match or all whatever. It works.
Yeah, that muscle fatigue's a bitch, ain't it?
Exactly. You only have a finite amount of strength, or stamina to be able to keep that up. And
right.
Unfortunately, it just doesn't. It might work great for a 6-round build drill if you did like 3 of those in a day, and then that's what you called your shooting practice, and that was it. Doesn't work so well if you're shooting a 400-round match, or if you're shooting a 500-round practice session on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that was brought up higher up in the chat was regarding LE training and some bad habits that can be P.S. Everybody, thank you for throwing in awesome questions in the chat so I don't have to do any work. This is awesome. Really appreciate that. So Limitless Laser Works, who I happen to know wears a badge on occasion, was bringing up some bad habits from the LE training days. You have any experience in helping those poor boys get outside there? Yeah,
I have a lot of experience with LE, and I do offer my classes to LE departments as well. Yeah. And can train privately and work with just a departmental or interdepartmental training as needed too. So, and I get asked this question quite a lot: does my curriculum change just because my audience is now full-time LE guys versus, let's say, hobbyists and passionate shooters, that are kind of open enrollment or weekenders? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. My curriculum is what my curriculum is, and it is 100% 100% improvement across the board, regardless, like I said, of your experience level or what you do, whether you carry a gun for a living or whether you carry a gun for fun, on the weekends to shoot matches. So, but as far as on the LE side of things, unfortunately, a lot of departments, especially a lot of academies, are working on 30 and 40-year-old plus techniques and learnings and teachings that, unfortunately, I mean, somewhere along the last, especially the last 15 to 20 years, have improved. And unfortunately, in the academy, they're being taught a lot of things that aren't necessarily done the same way anymore, for the sake of obviously higher efficiency or higher performance. The term double tap makes my ears want to literally like shrivel up and fall off of my skull. And guys utilize that term a lot, or point shooting, right? Or unaimed sight pictures. And there's so many other old mantras in, unfortunately, our current state of affairs with law enforcement, like academy training, that kind of sets these guys up for failure, instead of success. A lot of it is, of course, the trigger control is important, yes, but trigger control is only part of the overall issue, right? I can have the greatest trigger control in the world, but if I can't hold the sight still while I'm pressing the trigger straight to the rear to allow the shot to fire, I'm not going to hit what I'm aiming at, and people still understand, like, man, I can hold the trigger perfectly great, right? In dry fire, I can press that trigger, but they don't know what it is they're supposed to be looking for in the firearm itself as like a tool of feedback to start learning from it. Like I always tell people and tell students this all the time, that gun is not just a super expensive hole punch, right? Its overall job is, of course, to poke holes in things, right? But it is so much more. It's an accelerator, it's a brake, it's a cruise control, it's a steering wheel. It's everything that you look out of a car and look out across the windshield. It tells you everything about it. It can be, those sights are not more, they are your aiming utensil, but they're also like your check engine light. They're your gauges.
That is a fucking golden analogy. I like that.
So when they light up, there's something wrong?
Well, they are literally lighting up in your face, telling you what's wrong with the inputs that you're providing on the pistol, if you just know what the fuck it is you're supposed to be looking at.
That is a fantastic analogy. I love that.
Dude, this show is good for about 3 or 4 t-shirt ideas every time we do one. You just earned yourself a Sling'N Lead podcast t-shirt.
Awesome.
TJ?
Yeah.
Do a t-shirt.
I'll crank one of those out later.
Something like with sights and a check engine light flash.
That was awesome. Exactly what was in my head. Thank you.
Fucking beautiful. So let's see what else we got. Bullet Sponge. I'm gonna read his question because it's a little more in depth.
Okay.
Any tips for isolating trigger finger from overall grip pressure?
Yeah, absolutely.
My middle finger can sympathetically squeeze along with my index finger, causing sight disturbance. Are there exercises to combat this?
Yes, you're over gripping the gun with your strong hand, which affects about 95% of the shooting population. Anytime you try to go faster, what do? We tend to over grip. We tend to, obviously, we want to improve our grip on the gun for the sake of recoil management, right?
Yeah, you white knuckle that thing.
Fucking wrong.
Yep.
Recoil management is completely and absolutely secondary to your initial job, your number one priority as a shooter, which is to grip the gun in a means of being able to hold the sights as still as possible so that you can manage the sights all the way through whatever pressure is necessary to fire the shot, period.
Makes total sense.
Your grip is nothing more than advantage or leverage on the gun, so that if you tend to get greedy with the trigger finger, which everybody does, right? By increasing leverage on the gun, by holding the gun harder or gripping the gun more firmly with the support hand. Okay. And people, if they can watch this, I want you to read my lips. The support hand, not the strong hand, support hand, right? So if you're a right-handed shooter, we're talking about the left hand. It's not called it along for the right hand. It's called the support hand for a reason. Its sole job and sole purpose is to hold the gun as still as possible so that me, big, dumb, stupid shooter, or you, big, dumb, stupid shooters, can absolutely then start effectively yanking or gripping or snatching or whatever the hell you want to try to call the term of operating or actuating the trigger in a way that doesn't affect any sight movement. That's how you shoot accurately.
Yeah, that was something I picked up this year, dude. I'm going to tell you what, folks, it blew my damn mind. You know, Kent talks about that aha moment where I just kind of start burbling and drooling all over myself because the light bulb that's been dim for decades came on. Yeah, that was it for me when I realized that. So, what?
What's funny, too, is talking about it's one thing. Having Jedi, like, manipulate your support hand and like, I watched TJ go, oh, really? And it's like, yeah, dude. Yeah. Just that little thing. And the rest of the day, he was like, this is like a cheat code. It's like,
yep. You're talking about Jedi's wave technique, correct?
Yeah. The wave.
Well, I mean, but just the concept or the principle of support hand does squeezing, strong hand pulls trigger. That's it.
Everybody tries to overgrip the gun with the strong hand. And then when they start to panic or they start to feel pressure by any means necessary, right? We're talking about time pressure if they're shooting a par time. We're talking about drills if they're trying to, or let's say a build drill. Anytime that they try to induce speed, right, it envelops pressure. And it's that pressure then envelops wanting to overgrip the hand, overgrip the strong hand to try to control the gun. No, you need to grip the gun harder or more efficiently and effectively with the support hand. That way the strong hand can do what the strong hand's supposed to do, right? And it has to do 50%. It has to do two things, right? So we break this down into percentages. So overall, we as people, right, we can only do or anything. And this kind of goes back to my race car days or my racing days or mechanic days, right? So we can ask a car, let's say a race car, we can ask a race car and we're going to consider ourselves race people, race humans, race cars, right? We can only do one of three things at 100% or a combination of two things up to 100% effectively, right? So like, let's say we're talking about a race car. All right. I can make a car steer at 100%, but I can't make it accelerate any more or any less unless I take some of the steering out of the car, right? I have to reduce the percentage a car can steer so that I can increase the percentage that I'm accelerating or braking, right? I can only brake and steer 50% braking and 50% steering to get that car to, again, achieve 100% total efficiency. We as humans do the exact same thing. So think about like when you're running and let's say shooting on the move, right? If I told you, I want you to just move from point A to point B, and I want you to run there as fast as you absolutely positively can. And you didn't have to worry about pulling a trigger. All you had to do was run. You could do that at 100% of your effective rate, correct? Sure. Yeah. Now, if I said, okay, cool, you're going to run. Now you also have to shoot targets. What's going to happen to your foot speed?
Yeah.
Your foot speed's going to slow down so that you have some percentage or ratio of percentage of what you can do to effectively start shooting targets, right? I can shoot, but now I'm shooting, let's say, very inaccurately because I'm still running too fast. So I have to slow my movement down to increase my accuracy, right? Your hand, right? We're thinking about the strong hand. If I'm trying to grip the pistol with 100%, I can't effectively press the trigger very well, can I?
Yeah, makes sense.
Right? So I have to reduce a little bit of the grip pressure in my strong hand so that I can increase the dexterity in my trigger finger so that I can press the trigger without having sympathetic muscle movement in my strong hand that cause obviously that movement in the sights.
This place is outstanding for info and knowledge. And meanwhile, we're over here in the chat making pickup truck versus revolver versus whatever. Are you seeing the chat?
Oh my God, Travis Crane's on here, isn't he?
Yeah.
Hey, Tim, are Revo shooters still race car drivers? Well, they're tow truck drivers, but we don't hold that against them.
We're over here like you're dropping the knowledge bomb of the century, and meanwhile, TJ and I are over here going.
we're just in the back of the class kicking paper footballs, man. That's
Yeah.
that's all we do here.
Oh my God, it's a wonder we don't have the Rona yet because we've been licking windows for years.
So to kind of bring it back to what was the guy's name? Bullet Sponge,
Yeah.
I guess was on the chat. So to bring it back to the problem that he's having right now with being able to influence sight movement, and it's simply because he's over gripping the gun with the strong hand, so he's not able to isolate the trigger finger or isolate enough finger movement so that he's got full dexterity in his trigger finger. So I would say what he needs to do is just back off. And I hate to put a number to this because I hate when people talk about like 60-40 grip, 70-30 grip. It's like, but just back off, just ever so slightly, back your grip off on your strong hand, just a little bit.
Well, and you can even try this at home. So if you're watching this, try to make a fist as tight as you can with whatever dominant hand you have, and try to move your trigger finger as fast as you possibly can with a death grip.
That's
now
right.
Relax and watch how fast it moves.
That's right.
It might not be moving the same distance because you're relaxing that pressure, but it only needs to move, what, a 1/16 of an inch to depress a trigger and
this is true.
Primer. So if you're talking about that speed, this is something that's demonstrably or capable of being demonstrated right there in your own home without a gun.
Here's the other thing too, right? And so there's always a catch to this, or always a caveat to this, right? So let's say Bullet Sponge is shooting a Glock, not a 1911. So let's say he's pulling the trigger on a hinge trigger system. Let's say AKA Glock, Sig P320, MMP. Anything with a hinge striker fired trigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we're taught as a shooter initially from the good old NRA and from anybody else, any old timey RO/instructor on the range that we've all gone to says, and I'm going to use a pencil here, is that we want to center the pad of our trigger finger right against the center of the trigger shoe to be able to manipulate the trigger straight back. Okay. But what if that shoe is pulled out a little bit further, and I'll try to move my hands out of the way here. What if that shoe is making my hand have to reach now so that my finger, right? It has all the leverage by having my finger centered on there. But as I pull the trigger, watch what happens to the pencil.
Yep.
I'm steering. This is exactly what happens to Glock shooters. So, or shooters that try to shoot, let's say, double action guns. So Beretta 92s, Sig P22, 226, 229 series guns, Shadow Custom 2s, or Shadow 2s, or any of those kind of guns, right? They end up trying to hook. They're trying to follow that mantra of I got to have my trigger finger just absolutely centered on the trigger shoe and press the trigger straight back, but the trigger doesn't fit them well enough. So they actually lose dexterity, or they lose leverage on the trigger. So they end up steering the gun. And so if this were the barrel of the gun and I'm steering the gun, I'm actually steering. So a right-handed shooter gets that nice steered do right or I'm sorry, do left or low left issue that everybody gets, right? And a lot of that is because they actually need to stop thinking about less trigger finger on the trigger. They need to start thinking about applying more. So instead of putting your trigger finger, let's say right here, I go all the way to the first distal joint, because now I've shortened that leverage rod. So now when I press the trigger, what's happening to that pencil now? It's going straight down into my hand instead of being steered off at an angle.
Yeah, I've actually seen there's a semi-popular rifle shooter who's a friend of the show that actually fires his gas guns that way.
Yeah.
You just called Cam semi-popular. Cam, I love you, man. Sorry.
No, Cam's fantastic. We love him. He's been on the show numerous times. But no, he shoots his rifles the same. If you ever watch him shoot his gas guns, especially if it's got a heavier, like a mil-spec grade trigger, because I've asked him about it and he's talked about it on several occasions, but he will wrap his entire finger. It looks like this coming on the other side of the gun.
Sure.
It's a complete hook. But I mean, the dude this is the same guy that's drilling an egg at 350 yards with a 223.
Right.
Right.
I don't care. And I tell shooters this a lot. Like, I don't care where you position your finger. As long as when I ask you to fire the gun, can you fire the gun in an effort or in a means, regardless to being able to wherever the sights are at on the target, or wherever you are placing the sights on the target, that's where your point of impact is. Yep. And if so, problem fucking solved.
So, and with that, Bullet Sponge does follow up with, is if we're talking about the firing sequence and getting into the follow through, is movement at the end of a dry fire press normal? I get a slight but consistent twitch at the end of my follow through.
You're going to a little bit, yes. And the reason for that is because you've got a certain amount of pressure weight required, right, for the sear to drop the striker spring, or to drop the striker, or on a 1911 gun or something for the sear to allow the hammer to fall, right? And as soon as that pressure is taken away, right, the trigger breaks. And the trigger breaks, and then, of course, the trigger's accelerated all the way into the frame. So there does end up being a little bit of oscillation in the sights. If you are noticing that pattern causing an issue in, in your point of impact on the target, how do we fix it? We just talked about it. You got to improve or increase overall grip pressure that's itself on the support hand. But in dry fire, I mean, honestly, especially like a stock Glock trigger, you know, they say they're 5.5 pounds. We all know you pull a Glock out of the box, they're about 6.5 to 7 pounds a lot of times, right? But if I'm pressing a Glock trigger straight to the rear, even by holding the gun as hard as possible, as soon as I hear the striker fall, snap, you know, I will see just an absolute little minor vibration in the front sight. But as long as that front sight itself is, if making sure I'm cognizant of that is huge, right? Because that again is utilizing the gun as a feedback tool to make you a better shooter, right? If you're not utilizing the sights as your tool of feedback or as your point of feedback, then you could snap the trigger at every light switch or fake target or whatever you got on the wall, like I've got behind me too, all day long. But if you're not cognizant of what the sights are telling you about the input you just provided to the gun, when the moment that the gun goes off or the hammer falls or the striker falls, then you're doing yourself a complete disservice in your dry fire. So you've got that figured out, Bullet Sponge, by saying that, yeah, you're seeing that little bit of oscillation when the trigger goes snap. And then of course the trigger bottoms out against the frame. If you're trying to reduce that, then again, increase input or grip input with the support hand will help that. The other thing too, of course,
digital firearms training right here. This is fantastic.
Or again, to change the position, maybe the placement of your trigger finger, so that you are pressing the trigger further straight back instead of off into an angle. So that you're having less steerage on the gun.
Now, Kent, real quick, I want to touch on that because you bring up an excellent point. So, folks, and no disrespect to Tim, but we are barely scratching the surface here.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, there is certainly something to be said, or where it can appear that, you know, oh, well, we're giving away all the secret sauce. You know, we're spoiling the surprise when you go take classes. Let me tell you what, these are things that I have seen not only Tim talk about, but other reputable instructors that I've grown to respect and care for as not just fantastic instructors, but as friends. And the amount of, they have forgotten more stuff than most of us will ever learn.
I do believe that. I wish I could make a class B 4 days long.
Hell yeah.
It's simply not just because obviously I love to teach. Like I fucking love this job. But seeing all of those light bulbs come on when a shooter learns something or figures something out or you know understands it and sees it for the first time, like learning how to call shots, right? Or learning to shoot transitions in a cadence, but then learning how to break the cadence to shoot, you know, beyond a cadence and shoot just on what their vision is telling them. It's so freaking cool. And unfortunately, in 2 days, I mean, I've got such a like, you know, people talk about like, oh man, I took my first firearms training class and it was like drinking from the fire hose. Bro, I've got the fire hydrant hooked up out back, ready to just hose everybody down with as much information as I possibly can. And unfortunately, I have to limit that to 16 to 20 hours worth of, you know, of information to give to somebody. And I want to give them as much as I can, but also not completely overwhelm them to the point where they're just like, oh my God, I didn't learn anything because I was so overwhelmed at the amount of information that he was throwing at me, you know?
Yeah. It's so it's funny, Anthony in the chat, we were talking about 4-day classes, and he's over there like, why not? It's like, yeah, well, trying to get people to buy it that way. And,
it's not me. It's
no,
unfortunately, generally my student base, of course, and you know it as well as I do, I mean, we're limited to weekends a lot. Student base is limited to weekends because everybody's got a day job. If everybody could be professional students and take training throughout the week, I could be a professional instructor and teach you for a solid week. That would be great, right? Unfortunately, that's just not the way things work. So, I'm kind of limited to 2 days. I do offer 3-day trainings, as well as like an instructor development course, that actually basically it's my full 2-day curriculum, and then a further 3rd day that is how to break down the curriculum and how to teach the curriculum to your student base. So, and that's where we can get into a lot of other things as far as like, a full 3 days of training. The other 3-day training I do is also called like a match clinic, where I do day 1 on, say, a Friday, and I do day 2 on a Sunday, but Saturday we shoot an entire pistol match together. So I take the entire student base and we shoot a 5-stage or 6-stage or 8-stage match together. And I get to offer them all the private coaching and everything that goes with shooting a match, like the most efficient ways to shoot a stage, the most efficient ways of breaking the stage down, and give them the feedback of things they did well, things they didn't do so well, and taking notes on all those students. And then, of course, then finishing up by doing day 2 on that 3rd day and breaking down those things that we talked about from day 1, applying those to a match, and then taking the things that we learned at the match and what we could or didn't apply on day 1 to learning how to apply it better on what would be a day 3. Yeah. But again, it takes a student base that happens to have, extra vacation time, or, happens to have a 3-day weekend that they can spend with me to do those kind of things.
I see Kent looking at his Google Calendar now.
Yeah, don't be saying no shit, because we'll have you out here for 10 days in a row. I'm dangerous with this crap.
He's got a Lhasa Apso you can snuggle up with. You'd be good to go, man.
Oh yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, so we did have we had a question from. Oh, by the way, shout out to other awesome hosts. My man Chuck Mumford down in Virginia has hosted some great training in his day, and I've had the pleasure of being at his spot as a student. So Chuck asked, and he assures us that this is not for him because his vision is 20/20. But if you're an old guy and you're having some vision problems, any advice for tracking the sights? Yeah. Besides, go see Jedi and put a freaking dot on that gun.
I'm going to tell you right now, a dot is great, but so many people have disregarded how to read iron sights more efficiently.
I might just take your class with a sight gun, with an iron sight gun, just for this purpose.
Man, okay.
Yeah,
no, seriously.
Tim, what you don't know is he just threw down the gauntlet because he is blind as a bat.
Nope.
Yeah.
So so this is something I talk about with students all the time. In fact, I just got back from Boise, Idaho 2 weekends ago. Not this past weekend, but weekend before last. Before the government, of course, totally put, a stop to traveling, training, and all that kind of stuff with all the shutdown. And that entire class, I had 12 students. 3 were shooting iron sight guns. Everybody else was shooting a red dot. I taught that class with a red dot. The great thing about it is most everybody thinks they could pick up a red dot gun because they're like, my vision's fucked, right? I can't see the sights like I used to. I have a hard time, especially at distance. I have a hard time being able to see what the hell it is I need to be aiming at 18 to 25 yards. And I say, you're just not using the sights correctly. I'm going to break into this just a little bit, but I'm not going to give away too much. This is going to be one of those, you got to come to my class to figure it all out. So I'm going to make you pay for this one. Good. But I would ask them, I first ask the question, okay, put the gun down or put the gun in your holster. And they do. And I say, can you see the target out there? And they go, yep. I'm like, great. Then you can see enough to aim and shoot absolutely precisely at 25 yards with just what you're seeing right there. Period. And then I will expound on that in class.
What a tease.
Talk dirty to me, baby. I'm over here.
I've had some I've had some other instructors take my course, especially when I was in West Virginia last November, and 1st of December, and they all pulled me aside and were like, "Bro, you ever share this shit on the internet free of charge? I will come knocking down your door and punch you square in the throat for sharing this shit. Like this is too good to just share with everybody. This needs to stay your good stuff for your class." And I was like, okay, I'll take your word for it. Because anybody that really knows me knows I will share everything. But I'm just saying, it's like, if I knew that a couple of these guys are even listening or watching this podcast right now, I don't want somebody knocking on my door tomorrow morning, punching me square in the mouth because
don't worry.
I gave away the goods.
Yeah.
West Virginia. Well, first of all, we've got
you are safe.
Yeah, the fan is very happy to see you here. That's one thing. And the other thing is West Virginia has lost power 3 weeks ago. Them boys, you don't got to worry about that.
Yes. So real quick, I do want to capitalize on this opportunity. So for those that are wondering, okay, so Tim, we mentioned he's a Grandmaster PSA shooter. He is a Grandmaster in single stack and limited division. Mm-hmm. There is no super space $5,000 whiz bang race gun with lasers and Patriot missile targeting systems on this thing.
That is correct.
Iron sights, and apparently they still make these, but magazines that only have a single row of bullets.
Oh man. Yes. 1911s are they're my jam, right? And I don't mean that because they jam. I'm just I love 1911s.
I think they got to feed properly to jam first, don't they?
Yes.
But actually I made Grandmaster and limited division with my 1911 8-round gun, shooting much harder, much more difficult limited division classifiers in matches with my single stack gun to make Grandmaster with a single stack gun, in limited division. I'm working on it. And just because I haven't shot enough matches or I haven't shot enough classifiers with my carry optics gun. But carry optics will probably be Grandmaster card number 4 for me. So for those that think that I'm just like old and set in my ways and I shoot old fud-tastic boomer guns like 1911s with those bumpy things on the top of them, I also know how to shoot those, those optic sighted things too.
So I do seriously have a 1911 question for you.
Okay.
Well, first comes a joke, then a 1911 question for serious. Do they in fact all fall to hardball? Is that really? So that's the joke. Now the honest, serious question is for somebody who's 1911 curious, which P.S. I am. How do I get one that doesn't suck and doesn't cost me $9 million?
Okay, so $9 million is a hell of a budget.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Look at all the ad revenue on this here podcast, man. Are you kidding me?
But I could tell you, guns that don't suck. Nighthawk Custom, contact Nighthawk Custom. The guns don't cost $9 million. They cost you about $2,800 to $4,500, depending on how they're equipped. However, they are hands down the best performing 1911s I've ever had the honor of running. So, and I say that as a shameless plug, aka ambassador, for Nighthawk Custom. Like that's my family. And I've been shooting with Nighthawk Custom now for a couple of years. And again, not only as just a sponsored shooter, but as an advocate of their product as well. So,
okay, let me re-ask my question.
Okay, you're gonna re-ask your question.
Is there like a Taurus level 1911 that doesn't suck? Nighthawk, like I could see one of those in my future someday. That would be cool, right? I spend that much on a fucking Glock, right?
If you're gonna spend, let's say your budget is $1,000.
I was gonna say $1,500. Throw me out a $1,500.
$1,500. That's an easy one. Dan Wesson.
Oh yeah. We forget those exist. Yeah, good call.
It's because they're 1911.
Well, yeah. Besides that.
No, in all seriousness, folks. So we Kent and I have had the 1911 discussion, and while some of these prices might seem astronomical to many of you, the recurring theme between Kent and myself has been baller on a budget, right? When it comes to a 1911, one of the biggest issues with the 1911, the reason that they are the butt of so many jokes in the gun industry is because they started to become mass produced with the adaptation of military contracts. Whenever you start mass producing something that originally started out as a hand fitted, hand machined, hand finished product,
right,
it all the quality control went out the window.
right.
You look at these companies that Tim's listing off, so like Nighthawk, Dan Wesson, your STIs, all these high dollar 1911s. If you want something that you are going to bet your life and to many extents your reputation on the competition range to, you got to cough up the coin. I would say 1,500 for Dan Wesson. I'd take that to combat all day long.
Oh yeah, yeah,
all day long. Yep. You hit me with anything. You hit me with anything that's 1911 that's sub. I would even say sub $900, and I'm gonna look at it with a raised eyebrow. Be like, no thanks. I'll stick to my plastic fantastic.
And honestly, I think as far as like mass-produced 1911s are concerned, Sig Sauer makes a pretty mean 1911 as well. I
will give you that. Yes, I can attest to that as well.
I've got a couple of Sig Sauer 1911s, one in 9mm that I actually use as more of a training gun now. Just because, the cost of 9mm and being able to travel on airlines with 9mm versus, a whole suitcase full of 45 is a little easier.
Well, they look like a bunch of grenades sitting there.
Right. But I've got a Sig Sauer, they call a traditional match elite, a TME, in 9mm. That gun's probably got close to 60,000 rounds through it. And it runs and is as accurate as the day it was new. I've also got a Sig Max Michel version 1911 that's got, it's more suitable or set up for like single stack competition. It was my first like true competitive style 1911. I think it lists for like 1,700 or 1,800 bucks. I think I got it out the door. I mean, you can find them all day long now in gun shops for about $1,200, $1,300. And it's been an absolutely fantastic gun too. And I know that one is tipping the scales at like 67, almost 68,000 rounds through it now.
Wow.
Before I parked it, for other guns, like I've got a couple of Atlas Gunworks 1911s, which are absolutely phenomenal, beautiful pieces of art that work flawlessly. And then I've got a couple of Nighthawk guns that are, again, the same way. So just because I've graduated up the scale doesn't mean that I no longer recommend, kind of the same, $1,000 to $1,500 pistols. There's quite a few out there.
What are you running for mags in that Sig Match Elite?
Wilson ETMs, the Elite Tactical Mags.
That's actually, I just pulled that gun up real quick and did not know about it before you just mentioned its name. That gun's selling right now for $9.99.
Yep. It doesn't come with a magwell, but it does come with ambi safeties. It comes with a target rear sight, like a Bomar style rear sight, adjustable rear sight. It comes with a solid front sight, but you can put a Dawson fiber optic front sight on it for a little or nothing. I put a Dawson ice magwell on mine, and it still has the flat wire recoil spring. I've never changed it, and that gun, like I said, that gun is still running awesome.
Yeah, I gotta check though. It doesn't have a light rail, so I have to buy another holster.
Doesn't have a light rail. It's a standard. That's why it's called a traditional match elite TME. But it does have front strap checkering. It does have a slightly higher undercut underneath the trigger guard. For 1911s, I mean, just out of the box, fit and finish on it is really, really nice. Especially in 9mm with the external extractor on it. The gun has never failed to extract. It's never failed to eject. It's been a workhorse.
Outstanding. So with that, out of curiosity, so you obviously I think we beat the competition door down and to splinters. Speaking to your defensive classes, what do you care? What's your EDC loadout look like? What are you rocking for your EDC gun?
My EDC gun, actually, so I've been a Glock 19 guy for a long, long time. I hate to say it's the limbing effect, but dude, they just work, right? Yep. I believe it or not, because I'm a left-handed shooter, and the last Glock 19 I owned was a Gen 4, and I was too cheap to go out and just trade in my Gen 4 for a Gen 5 that had the ambi, some of the ambi controls on it. Mm-hmm. I actually sold my Gen 4 Glock 19 and procured a CZ P10C back when the P10s first came out. Better sights. They don't have plastic dovetail protectors like Glocks do. It actually had real metal sights. And it had full ambidextrous controls and a much better trigger straight out of the box than my Glock 19 ever did. Mm-hmm. So it didn't require me to buy a $170 Overwatch Precision trigger to just put in it, which Overwatch Precision is probably my favorite Glock trigger to put in.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank God you saved that. You were about to make Kent start crying.
I was going to don't tell me I'm doing something wrong, man. I got like $4,000 in Overwatch triggers over here. God damn it.
No, I love Overwatch triggers.
Jeez.
So, but my P10C has been rock solid. Like I said, the great thing about it is I didn't have to even change my holster, because the great thing about the P10C when it first came out was like, hell, I mean, 95% of Glock 19 holsters, that gun fit, and it did. So I carry that as a full-size gun. My favorite go-to gun, like right now, I pull out of my nightstand back there and just throw it out of my pants anytime, is a Glock 48. And I have fallen in love with that gun because it's everything I liked about a Glock 19, but in a single stack that fits these wee midget hands quite a bit better. So the gun doesn't feel like a brick like a Glock 19 does, because it's such a squared grip, like grip texture and everything. But the Glock 19, it just, especially me being a smaller guy too, I'm 5'5" and weigh like 145 pounds. So trying to always like EDC appendix a Glock 19 or the CZP-10C, sometimes it's just not conducive to comfort, nor is it conducive to like making the gun completely disappear with just whatever I throw on for the day. Whereas the Glock 48, because basically it's a single stack Glock 19, bro, I can wear anything and just, like I said, stick that gun down the belt and out the door I go. And believe it or not, one of my favorite guns to carry all the time is a traditional Smith & Wesson J-frame, just because it's so damned easy. I can put it in a coat pocket, in a pocket holster, or I carry it in actually a Safariland holster appendix a lot of times too.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, Kent and I both run Glock 19s and G34s, but I mean, we each have the 43X and the 48 and all those. Dude, those things are fantastic.
Yeah, the Glock 48's been my favorite. I'm one of the only guys on the planet still that has not bought the
Shield Arms.
The Shield Arms 15-round magazines for me.
I haven't either. I actually had a viewer ask me about those on the review video I did for it. I mean, it's a game changer for sure. Yeah. I mean, that takes that 43X or the 48.
Now it turns it into a Glock 19. It's just a slender Glock 19. But
essentially, yeah. I know they've been out for a hot minute. I'm still kind of waiting, cautiously optimistic to see how those really run.
I keep forgetting to do it, actually. I'm going to order those right now.
And I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, and somebody will be like, oh, dude, Shield Arms has got another group buy out of them on, so order them now. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll get to that. 2 days later, I'm like, oh, man, I need to order those. And I jump back on there like, well, you're on the next wait list for the next group. I'm like, son of a bitch, I forgot again. So I'm just like, piss on it. I've got enough Glock Mags right now. But I mean, like that Glock 48 is that's probably my favorite, just to carry day to day, because, like I said, it fits so many needs out there.
That might be the only gun I have left without a red dot on it. That might be what I have to take your class with. That'd be fun.
Well, now you'll have the magazine capacity to not be that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So I got to invest I got to have $9 million worth of Shield Arms mags and metal mag catches coming out my ass.
This isn't a dig on Shield Arms. They actually do make some really good stuff. My concern is just the fact that it's an innovation to a magazine. 99% of weapons malfunctions occur in the magazine.
Right.
Or have something to do with the magazine. So when you take a platform that is otherwise running like a Swiss watch or an Austrian handgun, and then you start changing critical components like a magazine, I'm good. I'm gonna sit back and wait and just pay attention to see when those failures start coming out.
So far, from everybody that I'm kind of connected with and that has been testing or running those magazines for a hot minute now or two in their Glock 48s have always reported really good stuff, out of those magazines. So I think I've had one guy say he's had either a spring or follower issue on one magazine. So, and I don't know, it could have been a variance in how the tube was made of the magazine or something like that. But he's like, yeah, out of 4, that's the only one that it gave me issues like once or twice. So he's kind of called that one to continue testing with it. But all the others, I mean, they've got thousands of rounds through them, and he's like, I'm perfectly comfortable carrying them now. So
I just need to find a magwell and mill that gun for a red dot. Throw a compensator on that motherfucker. I will go full potato on that gun.
A little mini rolling.
just you watch me go full potato now that I can get 15 rounds in it. But let's see what else did I have in line. You know what we kind of skipped over here, and we didn't mean to, but we just you were just so knowledgeable about gun shit that you just hammered down for the last hour and a half or whatever. We didn't even ask you. Who are you as a person outside of the gun world? You're an auto mechanic.
I was. Yeah.
Do you have any interesting, home remodeling stories that you might like to tell us? Or you got anything else going on in your personal life that might be of interest to anybody?
Yeah. So like so I'm currently in the process, me and my girlfriend, of completely gutting and remodeling or rebuilding a house basically from the ground up. So the only thing that's structurally significant that has stayed the same are the Viga, which, if you're not familiar with that term, Vigas is
they don't eat meat, right?
It's a Spanish term for basically log ceilings, or basically like a log home. And in the Southwest here in New Mexico, they call them Pueblo style or Santa Fe style.
Oh, that's right. You're in Albuquerque.
So I'm in Albuquerque. Okay. We bought a home on 80 acres of property about 45 minutes east of Albuquerque. So we're just east of the mountains, that we're currently, like I said, in the process of renovating. So the house was built in 96, and it had an in-laws suite added to it in 04 or 05. And then unfortunately, the second owners of the home, she became very ill. She was old and retired, became ill. So her family had to kind of remove her from the house. And unfortunately, she's no longer with us. And the family didn't want anything to do with the house. So they let the house go back to the bank. So the house sat in a state of foreclosure. And then unfortunately, the bank couldn't seem to get rid of it either. So the government took it away from the bank, and it was a HUD property that sat just completely empty for 18 months. But like I said, it sits smack dab square on 80 acres in the middle of a beautiful but very desolate Stanley, New Mexico. I've got a barn. I've got a 3-car garage, a 2,700 and some odd square foot, 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom, beautiful Pueblo style home that was in dire need of kind of some rehab. So the exterior walls are 2 foot thick all the way around. So all the exterior walls, it's actually made of a construction type called rammed earth. So, and it was done locally by a company out of Edgewood, New Mexico, about 20 minutes west. And so they build these big forms, and then they take aggregate and dirt basically from the ground, and they ram it into small 3 or 4 inch sections, and then they add a hardening agent to it. So concrete's got limestone in it, right? Or lime that hardens up. So they add a hardener to it, right? And then they compact it and compact the shit out of it. Then they pull the compactor off of it, and they add a couple more inches to do it, and they do the exact same thing over and over again until they basically build it's basically a bulletproof house that is almost cave-like. So the great thing about it is as hot and as arid as New Mexico can be in the summertime. The interior of the house, we went and looked at it last summer when we started to put our initial offers in on it, and the house was 98 degrees outside, and there's hardly any shade. I mean, this house, like I said, it just sits in the middle of the desert. But we would go inside the house that had no electricity and absolutely no heating or cooling in it, and the house was a balmy 76 degrees inside.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, you're just like painting like a dream picture for me.
oh,
for
dude, it's awesome.
Like 80 acres.
80 acres.
Perfectly naturally shaded and air conditioned house, at least because of the construction.
Yep.
And no one around for miles. Oh man.
Yeah,
y'all could have like a herd of corgis, TJ.
My nearest neighbor is to the east of me, and he's just he's just a little over a half a mile away. My nearest neighbor to the west of me is 3.8 miles to the west of me, and I've got nobody to the north or northwest of me, at least by 13 and a half or 14 miles.
So coming summer of 2023 is going to be Tim Herron's long-range shooting school.
Yeah. So yeah, we've dialed in. The house, unfortunately, kind of sits perfectly square right in the center of this 80 acres. So I've literally got 40 acres to my east, 40 acres to my west, 40 acres to my north, and 40 acres to my south. The house sits directly smack dab in the middle of it. But if you were to shoot lengthwise from the very front of the property all the way to the very end of the property, I think we've got about 690 some yards.
Honey, open the back door and the front door, would you?
Yeah. So my girlfriend, she's actually a long distance shooter. Like that's kind of her forte. So for her, it was like, oh my God, now I get to shoot, I get to shoot all my rifles and stuff again. And I get to build, I'm hoping by the time we get moved into the house, once we get done with renovations, by middle or end of summer, then I will start construction on at least 3 shooting bays that'll at least be 25 yards wide by 25 yards deep, to be able to train.
Yeah, Yep. That just completed the picture for me. Thank you. It's time for me to roll over, smoke a cigarette, and go to sleep. That was fantastic.
That's so freaking
awesome.
Awesome.
So we do have another question from Sarah. What is your favorite USPSA moment?
Oh man. God, I have so many. One of the ones that stands out most for me was my very first major match I went to, which was the end of 2000. Like I began shooting in 2010. The end of 2010, there's always a match in Missouri, in Rolla, Missouri, called the Missouri Fall Classic, and it's always shot like the second weekend of October. And it's especially fall in the Ozarks. It's like, it's chilly, it's like it freezes overnight, so it's just, it's that super crisp, cold, fall air. It's, the trees are all changing. You're kind of shooting, and this range is kind of set in the woods and stuff. And that was my very first major match ever to go to. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, other than, I'd shot, I don't know, probably a handful, 10, 12 local matches, coming up to this. And the guy that got me kind of hooked into USPSA was like, bro, there's this match in Rolla, Missouri called the Missouri Fall Classic. It'll be your first major match. I'll take you to it. And we're going to go down there and have a ball. And I was like, okay. And dude, I was blown away. The people were super cool. It was my first major match I ever went to. And it has become like the quintessential, like, end to my season every year since I've lived in the Midwest. Unfortunately, I didn't get to shoot it this previous year because it was my first year here in Albuquerque, and I was actually teaching a weekend that fell on top of the weekend that match typically would be. So I didn't get, like, last year was the first year in like 10 years I didn't get to shoot it. But that is just everything about that. Just as far as USPSA moment, I just started hand loading. So unfortunately, I missed the mark with my major calibrated, major power factor ammo. And I ended up shooting for minor power factor score because my ammo didn't make major, and I didn't care. I finished like 8th overall in single stack out of like 16 or 17 in the match or whatever, that were shooting single stack at that match. And I didn't care. I thought it was like, for me, it was like going to the nationals. Like, I had no idea that anything outside of a local USPSA match ever existed until I went. And like I said, and to this very day, that match is probably the most near and dear to my heart, just because of the memories that I've got built on that being my very first like major match experience at USPSA. Was super cool. That's really
neat. It's of all those, like, I was waiting for you to be like, yeah, time I fucking smoked Latham or something cool like that. Like,
No, I did. I've had a lot of great moments like that. I mean, the match that I walked away from knowing that like I made Grandmaster, like this was the moment I made GM, or the moment that I had a previous national champion wrap his arm around me and say, and I, at the time I was A class and it was just trying to make the bump into master. And he wrapped his arm around me and was like, dude, I don't care what anybody says. That's how you shoot all the time. You shot this entire weekend like a master class shooter. And I was like, okay, I mean, that was a really cool moment too. So I've had a lot of those, but I mean, for me, just like I said, it was meeting so many different people from all over and, shooting in, like I said, in the cold, crisp fall mornings and, and that the Missouri Fall Classic kind of follows the old IPSC or USPSA rule set where they would shoot the match all on one day on Saturday. And then on Sunday, while they were getting the prize table in order and trophies and awards and everything, they would set up a man-on-man steel shoot-off match that like for $10 buy-in, and you shot like man against man, popper to popper. And the first one to knock down their steel and then their stop plate first was the winner in advance. And it was like a double elimination thing. And I thought, oh my God, are all major matches like this? This is the fucking most coolest thing I've ever had in my life. And every year, whether win or lose, it doesn't matter. But you can bet your sweet asses somebody's earning my $10 to buy into that match to shoot on Sunday, and then what they do awards later after the man-on-man steel shoot off, they do the trophies and prize table. And then everybody's kind of back on the road by noon or 1 o'clock and heading home. And it's a fun, to me, that was always like, that's the best ending to whatever season you had as a competitor. Hands down, that's the best ending ever. You could have shot the shittiest match of your life. Wouldn't matter. That was the best ending to the whole damn season, was the Fall Classic. Just super fun.
I could tell how emotionally invested in it you are, because you're just as passionate about this as you were about giving Bullet Sponge a private lesson on podcasts, which is amazing, by the way. So, dude, I got to be honest with you right now. We gotta kind of wrap it up, and I really don't want to. I think TJ texted me. He's like, "Hey, dude, we got like 10-minute warning or whatever." And I just texted him back. I was like, "Daddy, can we still talk to our friend longer?" So please, whatever.
I've got all the time. If you guys got the time, I'm having a good time.
TJ's got like a house full of kids and corgis and fucking mastiffs, and
you've got corgis. Do you have Welsh or Pembrokes?
Oh shit, we're about to do this.
Yeah, the Welsh.
Ah.
Yep.
Good answer.
Yep. No tail.
No tails.
Tricolor.
Oh, okay, cool.
And his favorite chew toy is the Mastiff.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. He has his own Instagram.
I had a Pembroke for a number of years, and God rest her soul. She, of course, as well as I do, like corgis especially have a lot of hip dysplasia issues and things like that.
Hip and spine problem. Yep.
Yeah, and she had a very bad hip dysplasia problem, also followed with a lower spine problem that was just super degenerative. And we got a good solid 12 years out of her, and had to put her down about 8-9 years ago. But yeah,
it always sucks.
Corgis were the coolest dogs.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the personality they come with is just hands down one of the most interesting.
Yes.
I mean, whether you like small dogs or big dogs, it doesn't matter. The personality that
they're big dogs. They're big dogs with no legs. Period.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, he will sit on my wife's lap and stare at me and argue with me about stuff. He has conversations, just sits there, starts yelling at me. I don't know what it is. Apparently, he thinks I'm management. I don't know.
My favorite part of our most recent adventure, which was we just took Jedi's class in Tennessee, which is where TJ is, and I went down to take that class with him, even though Jedi's coming up here as long as the COVID lets him. And I'm like racking out on TJ's couch, right? And I've just got this corgi like right here, like, excuse me, sir, you are in my spot.
That's right. That's right.
You seem to be misunderstanding the core concepts of the way this household evolves, which is around me, motherfucker.
That's
Get
right.
off my couch.
You are fodder. Move your ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So do your capitalist thing, bro. Sell your stuff, pimp Nighthawk, pimp whatever you got to, please.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, obviously, I couldn't do what I do without all of the wonderful help from a very actually small group of companies. I'm not one of these guys that like pimps themselves to, the highest or lowest bidder just to wear a logo on a shirt. So I've been very fortunate. I have been shooting with Federal Premium Ammunition since late 2016. So this is my 4th year with Federal, representing Federal. This is my 2nd year with Nighthawk Custom. I've been also very proud to be sponsored and represent Red Hill Tactical. Red Hill Tactical, Robert King probably makes the best double layer Kydex holsters on the planet. And in fact, Bob has been a sponsor of mine since back when I was sponsored back in my old SIG days, back in 2014, 2015. And then Targets USA, maker of some of the best steel target systems like ever made. He's out of Anchorage, Alaska. Jason Wood's his name. But Targets USA, the great thing about Targets USA and all the steel targets is they're portable. And everything that he builds, the reason it's made to be portable is so that he can ship it in flat rate boxes from Anchorage, Alaska to the lower 48. So that if you or I were to purchase steel targets from him, it's not costing us like immense amounts of money with shipping to either airship and then freight line the stuff to your house. It actually comes via U.S. Postal Service on flat rate boxes. And then Hunters HD Gold. Brian Conley owns a company called Hunters HD. I don't know if you guys are familiar with their eyewear. Their eye protection that the lenses are photochromic, so they change. They get darker or lighter. As people that wear glasses obviously know, photochromics not a big deal. But the lenses are in a hue of almost like a UV blocker, similar like kind of, I hate to use the old term, like the old blue blocker glasses, right? But it basically eliminates a lot of I can't remember if it's UVA or UVB rays, but it also allows your eyes to stay focused and see higher definition for 30 minutes ahead of sunrise, all the way to 30 minutes past sunset, for more crystal clear and more high definition, like I said, eyesight on the range. And everything with the Hunters HD stuff is all ANSI certified, and like safety glasses and everything like that too. They're wicked cool. And he not only has his own lenses, own frames for his lenses, but if you've got like your favorite sunglasses, like a lot of people like Oakley's, or like half jackets or bottle caps or something like that. But if you've got anything that's got dual lenses on them, he can custom make Hunters HD lenses for your particular frames of choice as well.
I'm going to have to check those out because I can nerd out on some shooting glasses.
So, yeah. And I used to wear his, they're called Caliber frames. And when he started making the custom lenses for Oakley's, I was like, ha, done, son. My favorites are Oakley half jackets. I'm sorry, are the flat jacket 2.0s. And then he makes the lenses, the Hunters HD Gold lenses for my flat jackets. And they're bad as hell.
Very cool. Very cool. Of course, Tim did nothing to promote himself whatsoever. All he did was promote all his friends and sponsors and everything like that. But TimHerronShooting.com, he's got his Insta, his Facey Space, his YouTubers, all that stuff's on there that you can go find him.
I do.
If you want to get into our class coming up here in Lewisberry, you got like a spot and a half left.
I was gonna say, I think we're down to like one spot or maybe two spots left.
Yeah, we're getting awful close to the calling it. And yes, we are still training. Because if we're still fucked by July, it's time to, we've gotten past the ballot. Yeah, we've gotten past the ballot box and it's gone to the cartridge box now.
So people have asked me, and I don't know if this was a question or anything too, but I know people are, concerned to like, hey, are you still training even through all this stuff? And the answer is a resounding yes. I'm still training, whether it be online or small group training, small group classes to kind of meet the government restrictions with like, no groups larger than 6 or things like that. Unfortunately, that kind of comes at a cost. So if we were to do a small group training, obviously it wouldn't be just $400 or $410 a student. It would be probably more like $600 a student, but you would also get much more one-on-one instruction with a smaller class body of like 5 students and 1 instructor or 6 students and 1 instructor. But I'm also trying to meet all the demands, kind of set forth by the government and all that good stuff too, like with, the 6-foot rule and everything for social distancing and all that stuff. So making sure that if I do have I did have to reduce my group size just a little bit in Boise from a sold out class of 12 down to a slightly more manageable group of 10. And that was so that I could make sure that there was at least 6-foot distance between shooters when we were on the firing line on day 1. And then of course on day 2, we work on a lot on stages. So, working with each shooter one-on-one, and making sure that of course there's I hate to say there's no physical contact, because there is going to be physical contact between me as your instructor and you as my student, because I got to be able to get hands in on the gun so you can understand what pressures feel like and things like that too. But yeah, I mean, I try to reduce, threats of any of those kind of things to happen in classes as much as possible, but still give everybody, the best Tim Herron shooting experience that they could ever ask for.
Just ask one dude to shoot a SIG 320 from before the trigger fix. There'll be fucking 11 feet on all sides of that guy. Nobody will be anywhere near that dude. There'll be miles on either side of the line. Awesome. Well, Tim, it's been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on here. Really appreciate you taking.
I feel the same. Thank you very much.
We've been really blessed in our relatively short tenure. We've only been screwing around with this for just about a year, and only turned it into a real business over the last 6 or so months.
That's awesome.
I mean, to be able to stand here and name off the names that we've already had on this show is it's just incredible to have had all you guys take this amount of time and effort to help us out and to lend your expertise. So from the bottom of our hearts, we're always honored. And with that being said, we got to pay our bills. So TJ, do we have any people that we owe thanks to?
Absolutely. So as always, be sure to check out Kent's training and his calendars and his Facebook and his YouTube and his Instagram with Green Mountain Defense. Please feel free to head over to check out my channel, Let's Sling and Ginger, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Of course, we want to give a special shout out to Right On Optics. As I've said before, they have recently rolled out their new lineup for 2020. They have got some fantastic equipment that they're putting out now, from red dots to variable power optics to binoculars. You name it, they've got it. Just a fantastic company, and we are proud to work and be pro staffers for them. So once again, that's rightonoptics.com. Head on over and check them out. Also, want to give a shout out to Dark Angel Medical. Kerry Davis is a friend of the show, and while we do have a discount code, I believe he's still got a sale going on. Is that correct, Kent?
Yeah, he's doing better than our discount code right now. So just throw in your order comments or whatever. Let him know that we love him, and tourniquets are a good idea. But he's giving you all 20% off his entire site right now. Last I looked, so beats 15. Go do that.
Sure.
And they're good regardless of tourniquet too, right? So you get your choice of like soft tees, cats.
Yeah, he's got you can kind of build your kit or swap things
your kit.
out. Yep. Yeah, you can swap things out, and he's got things that he recommends if you want to go with something different. Kerry did a really good job putting together that online store and making sure that it is adjustable or flexible to the desires of the customer. So great job with that, Kerry. But as always, darkangelmedical.com for that. Lastly, we've got merch. Head on over to our Teespring store. We just dropped a new t-shirt design, #Run Your Gun, Not Your Mouth, available in men's tees, ladies' tees, and tank tops. Please feel free, if you want to support the show and get some really cool swag in the process, head on over there. Links, of course, are in the description down below. So, Tim, on behalf of Kent and I think it is safe to say that you have certainly earned your place back here for a part 2.
Awesome.
We would love to have you back on the show, man. You have been a fantastic guest, and I, for one, look forward to training with you in the near future as well. But until then, God bless you all. Take care of each other. Wash your hands and get out and shoot.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Take care, everybody.